Hello, welcome to Financial Insider Weekly. I'm your host, Michael Gray, CPA. My guest today is Hillary Martin Hendershot, newlywed. Anyway, Hillary is an MBA, certified financial planner, and the company that she's with is the Family Wealth Consulting Group. She's a personal finance enthusiast, author, speaker, and financial advisor in Silicon Valley. In addition to building successful investment portfolios, Hillary works with her clients to help them identify the beliefs about money that keep them from experiencing true financial freedom. In 2013, she delivered a TEDx talk entitled "The Surprising Power of Language to Make You Rich." And Hillary's financial advice has been featured in the Wall Street Journal and National Public Radio's Marketplace. Her article has been published by Bloomberg News, Morningstar, and Women 2.0. And she's a regular contributor to Fox News and San Francisco NBC affiliate KNTV 11. She's the founder of the Rich Retirement Academy, and she has a blog that she keeps. It's called Healthy Wealthy Families. So she would love to have you check out her blog, and she also runs a Twitter feed at Hillary the CFP. Hillary, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Okay. Our topic today is why most people will never achieve their financial goals. So we hope that you won't be so depressed feeling after our conversation, though, because we're going to tell you more about how you can achieve your financial goals. So Hillary, you make a pretty bold statement here that most people, despite their best intentions, aren't going to make it financially.
That's
but the
right.
stock market saw a 32% gain in 2013. So can't people make money in the stock market?
You know, that the actual S&P 500 did have a 32% gain, but if you look at the returns that the average investor earned, they're far less than that, actually. Unfortunately, what happens is our emotions drive us to do the wrong thing at the wrong time. So what we do is we tend to want to get into the market once prices are already high, once it's already a bull market, when we think that other people are making money. And then as soon as the stock market falls or declines, when stocks are at a discount or on sale, we bail out. And we see this trend every time. So, and that means that we've done exactly the opposite of what the experts and we know that we should do, which is buy low and sell high. So I like to say, well, I don't like to say, but I do say that stocks are the only things Americans don't like to buy on sale.
Okay, that's cute. Okay, well, I think there's a couple of other things. That it's a little bit like there's a story about the guy who was praying to God. He says, God, please let me win the lottery. And then you heard a voice that said, buy a ticket. So because a lot of people, frankly, have been frightened out of the market and they're not even participating. And so you can't make that kind of return if you're not even in it.
Well, I think I tell people that I don't have any fear about the market because I understand it and I've studied it and I know how to interact with it. I know how to play nicely with the stock market. And, you know, I'm not saying that I know anything that someone else doesn't know. Really, truly, there are limitless returns available to you in the stock market. For example, if you knew for sure which stock was going to go up, you could buy it while it was still low, you could leverage your money, and in a very short period of time, you could have billions and billions of dollars. So you've got to think that the world's smartest minds have been hard at work trying to figure out what's going on in the stock market. And we know kind of what happens in the stock market. We have 80 years of really detailed data on business cycles and asset classes and how to reap the highest returns from the stock market. And so I just stand on the shoulders of giants. I read what the academics say, what the people say who are winning Nobel Prizes in the field of investments and economics, and I do what they say. So I'm happy to say that I would say most of my clients and people after I have the opportunity to speak with them would say, well, maybe I can see that the stock market isn't such a scary place. After all, it's your opportunity to take your share of all the profits of all the publicly traded companies in the world.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that most of those academics would say, though, is that the crystal ball is broken. So you said if you knew,
Right.
what was going to happen.
Well, there's a big difference between
Yeah.
knowing what the stock market overall will do, which is comprised of 12,000 plus companies. So globally, there are more than 12,000 publicly traded companies in the world. So we know if you diversify properly what will happen to your investments. What I don't know is what will happen to Apple or LinkedIn or Twitter stock.
Okay. Anyway, so you're talking about people and their emotions. You're saying that if people didn't follow their emotions, they'd have a better chance of achieving financial freedom. So would you like to maybe elaborate a little bit?
Yeah,
there?
so even if we do invest successfully, it turns out that most people don't realize how much they need to save to retire comfortably.
Right.
Because we're living longer and we're healthier and we're more vibrant and we're more active, our retirement can be up to 30 to 35 years. If you retire at the age of 65, you've got a good number of years ahead of you, and in many cases, the most expensive years of your life. And so it turns out in order to retire comfortably, we really need to save about 20 times our annual income. That number doesn't take Social Security into account, but it's a good working number. And so what I find is that people really underestimate that number. And, despite knowing this, for example, in 2010, 75% of the Americans that were approaching retirement age reported that they had less than $30,000 saved for retirement.
Yeah. That's pretty scary, isn't it?
It is. It really is. And I think that if you take action early, well, I know that if you take action early, you can really avoid the kind of hardship and lack of control and freedom in your older years that probably some people will find themselves suffering.
Yeah. Well, one of the basic concepts that we work with in financial planning is like compound interest or compounding one way or the other, for reinvesting your earnings.
Sure. Compound interest, I think Einstein said it's the eighth wonder of the world.
Right. So the thing is that the earlier that we get started, the better off we're going to be. And,
That's right.
But it makes it, early in life, it's also really hard to get into this this mode because it's so expensive, especially like if you're living in an area like Silicon Valley, just to sort of get
it can be hard, and I think people aren't necessarily in that mindset, and it may be that no matter how many times we tell a 22-year-old to start saving in their 401k, that they're just unlikely to do it. But you can still take advantage of compound interest no matter your age or what year you start. It really has to do with the length of time that you save. So compound interest, as you know, is when your money is making you money. So I put money in the stock market, that money earns a return, then the next year I get a return on the return. So that's when you start earning exponential returns, and that's a pretty great place to be. In fact, in 2013, I have many clients who earned more money in the stock market than they did working for wages, for income at their job. That's a pretty great place to be. So.
Okay. Well, what about budgeting? Seems like effective budgeting should be part of a person's plan for building their wealth.
Oh, of course. Effective budgeting is critical to. No matter what you make, you have to live within your means. You have to spend less than you make, and people struggle no matter what level. I think that maybe some people think budgeting is just for people who are low or middle income, but the truth is I know a couple who makes $2 million a year, but every year they spend 2.5. So no matter how you do that math, if you spend more than you make, that's a recipe for financial disaster. But what I find with people who take on budgeting, sure, budgeting is a great idea, and you might get inspired, and you might decide, I'm going to organize my finances, and I'm going to learn how to do Quicken or QuickBooks, and I'm going to put together a budgeting plan that I'm going to follow every day, and I'm going to save my receipts. And then what happens with those kinds of really detailed, kind of hard to implement, time-consuming budgeting plans is people end up with boxes and bags full of receipts. And if you skip a month, then in order to get caught up this month, you have to do 2 months. And if you skip 2 months, you have to do 3 to get caught up. And that maybe is worse than taxes because you can't just hand it over to your tax preparer. You actually have to do it yourself. And people kind of get to this place where they just throw the baby out with the bathwater. The system doesn't really work for them. It's too complex. And so they just get to a place where they really have no idea what they're saving and what they're spending. And so I like to recommend a much easier process. I like to recommend to people, I do use this in my own life to transform my own personal financial situation, and I teach it now. And I recommend that people use a system where they automate their savings. So I pay myself first, and then my income comes into a holding account. I use a system of multiple accounts, multiple checking accounts, and multiple savings accounts. And that way, and those accounts act like holding accounts for particular budgets. So in this way I have insight as to what I'm spending, and I know if I want that $250 handbag, I have to eat canned beans for 10 days. And then I get to make that choice. Am I willing to do that? And is it okay to do that? Sure, it's okay. That's your choice. But you also learn to live within your means. So again, you know, my experience with these complex, burdensome budgeting systems is that they just don't work for most people. It takes a particular personality type. And if you really automate your savings, then you don't have to categorize your expenses, download data transactions, or worry about bags full of receipts.
Okay. Well, there are a lot of different approaches to the problem. You found one that works for you. I've heard something like this before, though, of some people say, okay, now this is going to be my vacation account. This is going to be my charitable giving account. And so forth, and that can be a good practical approach.
Yeah.
And then, but also the idea, it's a little bit, of course, of the idea of the 401k in the first place, is it's designed so that a part of your paycheck each month is going into this retirement account. And that sort of disciplined savings, by sort of getting that money out of sight, out of mind, it helps to sort of insulate that money so that then it will be there when you have that need for retirement. So,
you know, it's very similar, I think, to for some people around their health and their diet and what they choose to eat. Most people don't choose to keep chocolate mousse in the house or jars of peanut butter if that's going to be hard for them to discipline and not eat that. So then we say, well, you only have to make that choice once. So when I put money in my retirement account at the beginning of each pay period, the only choice I have to make is to not really cancel that automatic payment. It's set up automatically, and then I just have to not take money out. And I know there's a penalty for taking money out, so I don't want to do that. So instead of having to make a choice every day, let me not spend this amount so I can pay myself at the end of the pay period, I say pay yourself first and be done with it. And then just figure out how to live a happy, comfortable life on what's left.
Yeah, okay. What are some other steps that people can take to improve their chances for attaining financial freedom?
So I think that, and it really dovetails on what we've been talking about around budgeting, but it really comes down to what are your daily habits. Ultimately, your choices that you make every day, the actions that you take every day, are going to result in a lifetime of financial, like the size of your portfolio, the degree to which you're comfortable in retirement. And so I think it's really critical that you acquire and develop a system of habits that supports you. And that includes, you know, not just how you spend, but how you save, how you invest. And then one thing we tend to not talk about is really how you think and feel about all that. Because if that feels to you like doing without, if it feels to you like a life that isn't comfortable, you're going to resist. You're not going to want to do that. It's not going to be a high quality life for you. So we have to find a way for you to either have it be fun or spend a little bit more money or maybe even make a little bit more money. We need to get to a place where life is comfortable for you.
Okay. So many people think that wealthy people are, because they're wealthy, they must be happy about their financial situation.
Truly.
Okay.
As I was getting my start in the field of financial planning, and you know, I'm someone, and I share this a lot, but I was a high earner, but an overspender. So my experience was always there's not enough money. So here I am meeting these multimillionaires, and I'm thinking, wow, they must be really happy. And I was really confused to learn that even wealthy people sometimes suffer in the area of money. And that can mean that they fight with their spouse or their family about it, or they have feelings of anxiety or even guilt about being wealthy. And yet there are other people who maybe have less money who experience being very peaceful around money. So what I learned is that how much you have and how wealthy you are is really truly distinct from how you think and feel about that. And so, I also see people who sabotage themselves financially. I mean, look at Donald Trump, right? Doesn't it seem like he's always in bankruptcy? So there are people who build empires and then lose them and build them over again. And what I see is that people tend to have patterns around money that while we get better as human beings, we get better at things over time. What I see when I look at people's psychology and neuropsychology around money is that things tend to stay the same. For example, they've done studies. If you're an overspender, you either overspend 3% or you overspend by 50%, right? So if you earn $100,000 a year, you either spend 3% more than that every year or like 50% more than that every year. And it's a consistent percentage how much you go in the red every year. And so that's what I mean by patterns. For example, you probably get the same amount of money out at the ATM each time you go, or you're probably reliable to carry the same amount of cash in your wallet at all times. We don't think about it, but these are really part of the habits and systems that I was talking about earlier. And so wealthy people have them, not wealthy people have them, and the question to ask yourself is, what are my mindsets and thoughts and patterns of action that are producing the results in my life? And is that what I want?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So one thing that you haven't really talked about here, but maybe you talked more about in your seminar and so forth, is a lot of people have, when you talk about self-sabotage and things, a lot of these things have to do with your programming, if you will, how you were raised, the environment that you were in. And mm-hmm. For example, there are a lot of people that feel that I can't have a better lifestyle than my parents had. That will make their ceiling for them as far as what they can accomplish, because they're not comfortable with that, to have more than mom and dad had.
Yeah, and that is actually something I talked about a lot. For example, in my TEDx talk last year was about neuropsychology and the discoveries that neuroscientists are making about the power of language on our reality. And it turns out that language is particularly powerful when it comes to conceptual things. And even though we don't relate to money like it's conceptual, it actually really is. Mm-hmm. Like we think cash is money, but cash isn't money. I mean, many retailers don't even accept cash anymore, and you can't do business on the internet with cash. So
no, we even have Bitcoin, so it's not even really money.
See, money is really conceptual. It's just really a conversation. Some people say it's an energy, but truly money is a promise delivered in measurable units that you can exchange later for something you value. And that's it. And that's all money is. It's not anything other than that. But we relate to money like it's powerful or evil, or like it's freedom, or like it's, success. But it's none of those things. Those are things we just made up about money. And I can't be more successful than my parents is another thing that exists in language but manifests in reality. And we do find that those mindsets permeate. They're absolutely, especially until you kind of hold it up to the light of day and see it for what it is, that it would be all powerful as it regards your financial situation.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about some of these things that you're doing to try to help people to learn better financial habits and some of the resources that you're making available and so forth.
Yeah. One of the things that's true about the financial industry is that it can be very difficult for people who don't have, say, $250,000 to $500,000 to invest to get good, unbiased financial advice, and that's just the way it is. It's not, there's nothing wrong with the industry. It's just hard to give customized advice if you're, as an investor, you're unable to really pay for it. So one thing that people who have a lower net worth might find is that if they go to get financial advice, someone's going to try to sell them a product that they maybe don't need. And that means that that person is a salesperson making a commission selling you that product. Maybe it's an annuity, or maybe it's one of a couple types of life insurance products that you really really aren't necessary. And that's not to say life insurance isn't a good product. I'm just talking about in certain situations. So I saw this and I really thought that I wanted to help. I wanted to help people understand what their financial mindsets are. I wanted to help people build good habits. And when it comes to my life, I'm a graduate of the School of Hard Knocks. I personally transformed my own, not only my mindsets around money, but my results. I racked up maybe $15,000 to $20,000 in credit card debt a couple times in my 20s, and I've paid off all my debt, rebuilt my retirement savings, and I'm definitely on my way to the financial life that is what inspires me, that financial life of my dreams. So I'm giving away basically everything that I know, and so I write about that, and there's tools and resources on my website, and I really am committed that if people are serious about transforming what's happening in their financial life, that they can do that.
Okay. So, and the website, maybe you can just tell us what it is.
Sure. So I created Your Rich Retirement Academy, which is at yourrichretirement.com. And it's an online virtual course. Depending on how involved you want to get, you could take the online virtual course to help people understand their financial mindsets and transform their habits, and learn what the academics already know about investing so that they can be on their way to financial freedom. And financial freedom is really not a destination, so you don't have to be wealthy to have achieved financial freedom. I mean, you need to be on your way, you need to be financially healthy, but truly anyone can experience financial freedom, and it's very freeing to not have money be an area of life that causes you suffering or trouble or problems. So it's yourrichretirement.com.
Okay. Now, have you also been doing some seminars or something in this area, or?
I do online webinars. I do free trainings. There's free information available on my website, and like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure where we are time-wise, but maybe you can share a case study. Has it been? Okay, we've got about 5.5 minutes. So case study, how are we doing in that area? A client maybe that you've worked with that you've seen some interesting results.
Sure.
Or,
I'll tell you about two. I'll tell you about one who you'd be surprised that she had trouble in the area of money, and one that's kind of a more common example. The first is a young woman who came to me before she was 30 years old. She had saved almost $500,000. And she had an average income. She's in the technical industry. She had a good income, but it wasn't really because she was earning tons and tons of money. She just was living excruciatingly frugally. And what I saw with her was that she was actually literally afraid to spend money. So this all came from, her past and her parents and her family, and what she saw when we worked together on her money mindset and her money kind of the neuropsychology around her money was that she was very white-knuckled about spending money. She didn't feel free to take herself out to dinner or buy clothes or anything like that. And since we've been working together, she's taken her first international vacations, and she's actually purchased real estate, and so she's feeling more and more free to spend the money that she enjoys, because she's clear that she's achieved what I'll call financial freedom, where she's on her path, she's saving at an adequate pace to accomplish what she needs to accomplish to take care of herself and the people around her. And so what's left over is something she's, that's available for her to spend. And then I'll tell you about another, a young man in my virtual course.
Okay.
And this is a person who is in social work. And his money mindset, or his thoughts around money, were money is evil. It's bad to want money. And so you can see how someone who thinks it's bad to want money would end up in social work, right? It's a very noble role, but it's also a public servant. And so at first, he really resisted the coursework, and it was very difficult for him to be in a course designed to have him achieve financial freedom when he thinks that money is bad and wanting money is bad. And I said, just stick with the course. Just please listen to the modules and do the homework. And my intention is to create freedom for you. My intention isn't to isn't to burden you by having you take on some value that isn't yours. And I in no way teach the value of money or wealth. The point is that we need money to take care of ourselves. That's just the way life is. And so over the course of listening to the modules and speaking with his family about how money was when he was growing up, what he really saw was that the things he thought about money weren't necessarily true. They were tied in with some religious values and everything, but that they weren't in any way values that he thought were, first of all, objectively true, and they also weren't things he wanted to hang on to. And so by the end of the course, he was actually interviewing other social workers, looking for people to partner with and ways to actually put information products on the internet to form a side business so that he could make more money teaching families the things that he knows about how to pull themselves out of distress and like that. So using what he's learned to teach and help other people, but also to improve his own financial situation. And he said, I know I'm going to take this money, and that money is all the money from the business is for my retirement accounts. And so I thought that was pretty great, that he went from kind of a mindset where he's, actually actively resisting money to calling more money into his life.
Yeah. And well, first of all, of course, there are a lot of people that have this attitude, of course, of money being evil. And of course, Jesus didn't really say money is the root of evil. It's the love of money. So, I guess a dependency on it. There is just a practical aspect that it pervades our society and so forth. But the thing is that when you have it, you can do so much good with it.
You can do whatever you want with it. I mean, money developed. An economist would say it's a very practical conversation. Money developed as what they call the solution to the problem of the double coincidence of wants. So if I want to barter with you, if I want that mug, then in order for me to take that mug from you, I have to have something that you want. Well, what if you don't want my mug? It looks pretty much the same, but I just happen to want 2 mugs. So then I need to have something that you want. And we wear different shoe size and we wear different ring size, so it's not going to happen. So then I need to have something to pay you with.
Okay. Hillary, we're all out of time.
Okay.
So thanks so much for joining me. Folks, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. It's just enjoyable to spend time with Hillary. And anyway, but we'll see you next time on Financial Insider Weekly.
Thanks.